Wassail, beautiful people. So we're here today in black to talk about Les Nuits Électriques, electric nights. And I realised the other day while walking around the town that a few days before I went to the exhibition, I had that Hazel O'Connor song, Eighth Day, in my head. In the beginning was the world. Man said, let there be more light. Electric means, or whatever. Anyway, that song is very relevant to what went on. You know, man creating light and it not really making him that much happier, ultimately. So, we're going to look at how the night time opened up, the darkness opened up, because actually within our souls at the moment, a very similar thing is happening. The darkness within our souls is opening up. But we need to look at it in context with what Impressionism brought, because one of the key things, I talk about Impressionism being born in this area, and in a way it was created in the streets of Paris with all the artists, but Eugene Baudin, I have to check how you say his name, Eugene Baudin was born in Honfleur that I visited, and he was the father of Impressionism, and he learnt to paint here in Le Havre after his father opened a shop here. And he was encouraged himself, and then later encouraged the young Monet when he met him to paint out of doors, because up until this point people weren't painting outdoors. And that's very relevant because, again, we're trying at the moment to be encouraged to go out and connect with the natural world when governments and authorities are trying to ask us to stay indoors, go out as little as possible and not connect. So it's like a history repeating itself battle. I don't have, unfortunately, my Impressionist tarot, and I did go out today looking to see if I could find any way of recreating it with playing cards or anything like that, and it didn't happen. But I did manage to find Les Chemins de l'Éveil, which kind of looks like something evil, but it's actually the pathways to awakening. And I thought, if we're going to do something about impressions and the impressions of the art, it might be really good to just open a brand new deck, knowing nothing about it, and let the impressions, oh look, shiny silver this time. Oh, that's so glossy. And to let the impressions of the cards speak to us, because that's what we're here for. Oh, the band is removed. I also found a Grimold deck, which was very cheap, it's a version of playing cards, but I'm rather hoping, unless I'm wrong, that it's it's the original game, Tarot, that the tarot cards are linked to. Now, whether they're readable, I've no idea. Well, there are some picture cards in here, but I'm not sure that I can use them to read. Anyway, we'll pop those back in their box and we'll think about that later. But the major arcana have definitely got imagery on them. So, we're here with Le Cheval d'Hiver. So, we were looking at Impressionism and electric lighting, because obviously the nighttime was being opened up by electric lighting. I think Paris got its first street lights in 1878, and dates are quite important around this period, because one of the interesting things was in 1873, Monet painted a famous picture of the port of Le Havre, Le Port d'Havre, and that was a very dark painting with lights reflecting on the water. And actually Le Havre, where I am, where I said a lot of things were born, was one of the first cities in 1868 or 63, I can't remember when, to put in electric lighting in their lighthouses here. And it also was one of the first cities to adopt electricity over gas for street lighting. So although Paris got it all a bit big in 78, this was already happening here because seaports are so important. So let's have a look. You know, nighttime became a playground. Oh, we've got our first card. Oh, 2 cards. Wow, I need to look up a word, even though we're getting impressions, and I was not going to do this, but this is a word that keeps following me around, and I asked someone the other day what it means, and they said it was the name of an artist, but it isn't. It's actually... It actually means something. It's not just an artist. Ah, the root. So we're talking about, we have La Forteresse 28 and we have La Racine 29. I'm going to give them a better shuffle because that's me not rifling them properly. But nonetheless, we're talking about the fortress, the foundation, the what holds everything together in life, is the root of everything, which is the darkness. The darkness is there before the light, because the light is an idea, is a thought, and our consciousness, our thoughts, come from the galactic centre of the universe. I'm going to look a bit further into those cards in a minute, but I'm just giving these a quick shuffle and a rifle. So I'm going to look through what's going on. So there's Scorpio energy on the cuff of the guy holding the fortress, the tower. There's a butterfly talking about the transformation as light comes into the darkness, which, you know, is logical and obvious. There's a whole series of light language forming in cubes, and I want to say pavements, pathways, because actually this patterning here of fan-shaped squares is very French paving formations that take place. And this is being held by a hand from the side coming in. La racine, the root, is being held up from the bottom. And both of these cards are talking about Yggdrasil energies. In this one, I feel like we've got miniature birds, but they could be butterflies. I think they are butterflies again. Transformative energy from the roots. We have leaves. We have more geometric patterning. I get a real sense of televisions in this card as well. Tuning into the wrong kind of light is what I want to say. So from the darkness comes light. Years ago, lights came about. You went to the theatre and theatres were lit by footlights. And now we have theatres in our rooms, in our homes, in our salons and lounges, which really are just light coming at us. And now our phones and our iPads, it's light and it contains all kinds of magical, mystical information, but it's not the light that actually illuminates our souls. So I also, I'm not going to talk about it yet, but I'm going to come back to blue and nocturnes in a bit. So can we please have something else to do with Impressionism and this exhibition and what it was telling us. You see, I do love reading cards. They're so much fun. So we have card number 9, the Divine 9, and it is Level, the Awakening. Now, this card, the Awakening, it's got runic symbols, it's got the symbols of the cosmos, it's got horoscopes, it's got, again, tiny butterflies, it's got the moon, it's got Saturn, it's got possibly the Earth, it's got formula inside it, it's got hexagons. It's all about everything coming together by having the root and the trunk of the Yggdrasil tree, la forteresse and la racine. We get the awakening, which takes place above the tree, the leaves, the branches, and it comes with card 30, le feu, the fire. And the fire is divine thought, the original spark. But it's also in this situation, it's talking about la racine. Underneath the earth now, man has put down wires. And then the fortress, I think in America they were called the poles of the moon or something, because they held great big globes like this, great big globes of light. And the lights were made by a guy from Russia, whose name I forget, but it's something like Jovelekovich or something. I'll when I write the article, I'll make sure that there's references to him. He was a Russian guy that invented a direct current lighting system with 2 electrodes and a piece of plaster of Paris in the middle. Now, they were very, very excessively bright lights when they went off, and they buzzed, really noisy. They also gave off ultraviolet damaging rays, and they also interfered with radio signals, which were just burgeoning at this point. And radio is another of those things that brought about massive changes. Like, for instance, in Italy, there was no common language. Everyone had their own independent, similar languages that were created when there were many principalities. And suddenly, with the advent of radio, the Italian people needed to speak as one, so they chose one accent to become one language, to become the Italian language. So this bright, shiny light that's come on, this fire, this awakening of the night, was man-made. That Hazel O'Connor song again, man said let there be more light, but it's wires in the ground, it's the poles, and then it's the globe on top, the fire, lighting things and changing our perception. So, just need to look at the fur. It's interesting that the fur is almost the energy that I'm getting from it is that it took us away from the natural world, the natural cycles of light and day. And there were a movement of artists called Les Symbolistes who turned to inventing a city of darkness in their artwork that was safe and comfortable because they missed the energy of the night. Okay, so again, I'm going to have to get the French dictionary out and just get us bang online with this impression, because I'm getting an impression, but I don't want, I can feel the energy, but I want to make sure that I do add just what's necessary to this, so just bear with me. See, I didn't have that one quite right. I knew that's why I had to look it up, because the word had a sort of similarity. So we have L'Aime and La Rencontre. Blade and meeting. So give me a moment with those. We've got Scorpio again on this one. We've also got Storks. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 little tiny, I want to say, tiny orbs of Mercury coming out of the head with the sunshine. It's 26, it's an 8. We've got more of these pavement patterns forming, but I'm also getting this is almost like it's the blade, it's almost like it's cutting us off from who we are and our sleep patterns. And that's what it did do. 2 sleeps. So once upon a time we lived by candles, and even in Paris, if you had a front window, you had to put a street window, you had to put a lamp light in the window at night so that people could have a little bit of light were they out. But most people went to bed when it got dark. So you went to bed and you slept, and then you woke up after 4 or 5 hours. And actually, most people, because they couldn't afford loads of lighting and things, would quite often have sex, and women are most fertile apparently in the period between 2 sleeps. And then you went back to sleep, and then you woke at dawn. So people did things for a couple of hours in the middle of 2 sleeps. And then the electric light came along, and we completely and utterly forgot all about this. So, energy just changed. So the meeting, 16, it's a very uncomfortable energy. I'm not seeing this meeting as something joyous. There's something tragic about this. It's the meeting of the night without understanding what that energy was bringing us. Look, we all love a bit of nightlife, but we're used to it now, so we've learned to deal with it. But this, I think what I'm getting from the energy of these 2 cards, the blade, the cutting blade, slicing away the meeting as cards, is that if you lived in wealthy areas, then there were lots of lights and everything was beautiful and everything was a joy and much hilarity and joviality took place. But that's always been the way, people with money have always had more fun. The poor and the working classes often had no lights, and so they were still living in older cycles. They weren't entitled or allowed to join in. And actually, for most working class people, they're working so bloody hard that by the time they get home, they just need to sleep. So there's a discomfort. There's also, and I will include it in the blog that I'm writing on Impressionism and the night. There was for all that there were beautiful paintings, there was a lovely one about the moth, which was a great, huge, dark painting that you almost couldn't see anything in. And then there was this huge moth image rising out of the middle of the painting. And actually, it was a giant bow on a woman's hat. And it was this transformation of, I want to say ladies of the night, but I don't mean prostitutes. I just mean people coming out in the night. Because moths in French are called night butterflies. So you get butterflies of the day, papillon, and papillon de nuit, the moth, which is really quite beautiful. And there was also another painting, which was a park scene with a dimly lit park bench. And lots of the paintings are about all the fun that was taking place around streetlights, and they were really bright streetlights. But in this one, there was a couple embracing on a bench, and she looked frightened. It's almost like the night had opened up now to even greater abuses, whereas before people were able to shut the door and lock themselves away at night. So, can you talk to us about the nocturnes? Can you talk to us about the nocturnes Can you talk to us about the nocturnes? 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 One more card, please, to the nocturnes. Oh, two more, apparently. So we have Carpe Diem, Seize the Day, Le Masque, which is a performance or the mask. Beautiful. I mean, look, the nocturnes I want to talk about. I'm going to check on some of these words to be certain, but these are the four cards. Nocturnes that took place there were an extension of a very old musical form that began in it was in the night time. It was part of the Catholic tradition of a mass that was said at different points, and nocturnes were a musical piece to do with the night. And the Impressionists began to paint nocturnes, which was quite a new and novel thing. Look, as I said earlier, people were, because of Edward Boudin, people were now painting outside scenes, and the Impressionists were painting outside, and most artists were painting mythological scenes in studios. So not many people anymore here were exploring the natural world and painting the natural world and capturing it and seeing the essence of the changing light that takes place in the day. They were creating artificial light in their studios to paint by. So what happened that was very significant to change the face and why Impressionist painting came along? I mentioned earlier the Port of Le Havre, and that was a very dark painting with lights trembling across the waters in wonderful strokes, really Impressionist. But part of the movement of Impressionism was the removal of black, getting rid of the colour of the nighttime. And it's interesting that in about, I think it was the mid-Victorian period, something like the 1850s, 1856, there was a guy called William Parkin who was trying to create something, and I can't remember what it was, I'll look it up for the article, and he accidentally created coal tar soap, but the byproduct of making the soap was this product that was called Mauveline lilac. Now, up until that point, there was no purple. You could never make anything lilac. The only purple dye there was Tyrian purple, which was imperial purple that you see Caesar and you see many cardinals and that kind of people wear. It was made from murex shellfish, and you needed something like 1,000 squidged shellfish, like water snails, sea snails, to make just one hem on a tunic. So it was very, very expensive. And blue as well as a colour was made by crushing together into paint lapis lazuli. So blue was always kept as special for the Virgin Mary because it was such a wealthy colour in terms of paint. Now, when he invented Mauveline, the whole world went lilac overnight. There's a lilac room in one of the palaces in Russia. Note paper became lilac clothing. Everyone wanted to wear lilac dresses. So chemicals soon came along to create all other colours. Once this first process was created, they were able to create all the others. And this meant actually that all paints became of equal cost. So you could now go into a room and see a whole wall covered in just blue paint, which would have just been almost offensive before, to just try and paint a great big seascape out of that much lapis lazuli. You know, it was reserved for deities. So everything was changing, even in terms of the materials that were being done. And again, we're changing in the same way. Our inner palettes are changing. If you imagine that our emotions were once very, very expensive and they were darkened with fear, we're now having our emotions open to us to choose the palette that we wish to move forwards with. So I'm just gonna grab the thing and check these words for us as we're going along. and then give us the message. So we have trust. That was the one I didn't know. So Carpe Diem and the Mask are 20 and 17. And if I hold them this way, the hummingbird of the heart is coming in to pierce the mask that we wear, that's the falseness of our emotions, that's this darkness that needs illuminating within us, and bringing a kind of richness of colour back to things. This hummingbird's absolutely splashing around in colour with a tiny little heart that it's bringing forwards to place inside of us. Our hummingbirds are coming now, which is great because I've been waiting so long for that hummingbird. And then trust the rain. Trust the rain. This is trust the cleansing, trust the emotions. It's interesting that I have to look at it. Yeah, so he's holding up in his left hand a whole series of question marks about the past. You know, what does the past mean? Why is the past? And actually, in the now side, he's beginning to get this energy of this arm and hand of the mask, and the mask is moving off. I don't know if you can see it. This hand is beginning to take on a new skin. I want to say it's kind of cyborgy, but that's not the point. The point is that it's removing the illusion that you live under, and it's the same thing that's happening here. Removing of the mask to create a new... I mean, it is like divine DNA blueprint. It's a whole new frequency coming on board within us. And it's very cosmically beautiful. So, do we have, please... I don't know whether there's any cards in this deck of any other colours, but we're going to pull just 2 more cards. So can we please have 2 more cards to talk about this movement of Impressionism and this seeing through of details? No, we can't. We need a different deck. So we're going to the Rêves de Gaïa. Because I need to understand, that was a general intro, but I need us to understand how this Impressionism works, because it's about layers of visuals and seeing through, and that last card is talking about seeing through the illusions, seeing through the masks that are in everything, and that's a new energy frequency that's coming in. I mean, in a weird way, ignore the central journey of this card, but do you see mountains behind him made from... Every time this card comes out, the word for the crystal that I want to use vanishes. And every time I put the card back in, the memory of that word comes back and it's gone again. That's so bizarre. But it's telling you something, because the whole point is that I'm being drawn not to what is on the card, but the mountains. Are they black crystal mountains, or are they tears in time through which you see the cosmos? Are we really looking at the hard surface, or what's really behind everything, which is pure energy? See, now we're getting somewhere. So, can we please have a little more explanation about the impression on the surface and what's below? The impression on the surface and what's below. The impression on the surface and what's below. Okay, so we've got 333 basically. So we've got the 3 of fire, the 3 of water. Where fire and water meet, or fire and ice when water's frozen, is where all life begins. It's the magic that creates the molecules to create the 3D reality. Now, le jeune homme, the young man, he has a scroll, he has a bag of food, he has a beautiful dog next to him, and he has a staff that is crowned with the light of Sirius, and there are 3 Sirius stars floating down, 3 shooting stars, sorry, in the far corner. And it's talking about 3 is a pathway. It's a pathway, and that's what this Chemins cards are. They're pathways. And pathways are made up of the molecules, as we said earlier, of like the Parisian cobblestones in those lovely fan patterns. Life fans out in front of us. And the reality is that between every molecule is not grout, but there is something that holds the things together, and that's the energy. And we've got to see past the molecules into the energies behind things, because at the moment the 3D world is acting like this 6 of earth as like a kind of frequency trap. We all have the key to break that frequency trap and see inside the molecules, to see through the illusion into what's really behind everything, which is the truth, the unmasking. So can we have just a little bit more about Impressionism? So Impressionist paintings, from a distance, you see an image, and that is the matrix image that we see in life. The nearer you get to it, you begin to see that it's less detailed, and then you begin to see that it's made up of brush strokes. But actually, if you just look at a whole series of individual brush strokes, a little bit like when we look at clouds and we see other images, you can begin to see other things hidden inside the bigger picture. So it's about the impressions that are given off and the reality of what something's made up from. Now look, not seen this one before. So this is the 8 of water, and he's standing basically saying, I'm not what you see, I'm what's inside me as a frequency. So what you see is not my true frequency, it's an illusion. It's kind of this card, the guy, the horned devil guy with the yoke on his back and the key and the chains, inside him he's free. But he chooses to carry on seeing the illusion because the key's around his neck. So can we please have just a couple of cards to end this little reading, please? Can we please have a couple of cards to end this little reading, please? Can we have a couple of cards to end this little reading, please? No, we can't. Can we please? Oh, they've gone on the floor. So let's get them. Right, so They seem very disturbingly different. We've got 19 emotions and we've got 2 of water, which is the mirrored soul card. And both cards are about coming into balance, but I think what they're saying here is just like Impressionist painting, it's the point, which is the perfect point at which you stand and witness a painting and are able to see the greater impression, the surface blurring, and then the inner brushstrokes that make up everything. At what point when you look at another person do you see their appearance, their energy, and then the individual frequencies that make up their whole being, is what that's telling me. To see the balance between their yin and their yang, the individual energy frequencies that move through them, that create them, and the general appearance of them. So look, someone can look on the surface absolutely beautiful, but their energy frequencies can be absolutely selfish. You can see someone whose general energy appears absolutely distorted and their appearance appears distorted, and yet their energy is absolutely beautiful. So we've got to learn how to transform the perfect point at which I see a person's energy as beautiful, and therefore I see that person as beautiful, because the frequency shining out of them is their truth, and truth is just beautiful, regardless of the individual molecular components and brushstrokes and pointillism that may have gone in to make up the painting. Sorry, pointillism is when they paint with dots of light, almost like our molecules. And I feel that pointillism, which was a very brief period, was born out of the globe electric lighting circles, dots. It was about capturing light in individual colours. So you would make up a grass by mixing blue, yellows and greens in single dots all next to each other. Look up Georges Seurat, Seuret, not sure, sorry, just that came into my head. Seurat, I'm sure it is, but anyway. So what is the point? What is the distance where you see the individual brushstrokes and molecules that make somebody up, the internal energy that flows through to give the impression, and the bigger picture that is their actual beauty? That's Impressionism, and it's also how we need to start viewing the world in everything. Okay, so anyway, I think that's such a beautiful message at the end. Who knew? Anyway, Wassail.